Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on managing heart conditions with food and nutrition. To kick things off with a quick introduction, I'm Maddie with Food Smart, and I will be your webinar host today. I'm a registered dietitian by training and a clinical liaison for Food Smart. And also joining me today, we have Lindsay, who will be managing the chat and answering your questions about Food Smart. During our time together today, we're going to discuss the genetics of heart health, explore different heart conditions, discuss solutions for success, and share a few recipe examples at the end. And we'll also save time for questions, so feel free to enter those in the chat as we move throughout the webinar today. So we know we can't discuss heart health without really understanding what heart disease is. And that's a pretty big task, but let's break down the nuances together. For those of you who attended our webinar last month, you know that we spent some time discussing heart disease. As a quick refresher, heart disease includes a variety of diseases of the heart or of the blood vessels. Oftentimes, heart disease is caused by a buildup of plaque in the arteries, which causes the blood to have a much smaller area to flow through than it should. When the arteries become too clogged or a blood clot forms, a heart attack or stroke can occur. This can be caused by a variety of factors like genetics, stress, smoking, lifestyle, and of course, the food that you eat. As a reminder, the most common types of heart disease include coronary artery disease, heart attack, stroke, and congestive heart failure. We'll dive into each condition in detail so that you know the what, why, symptoms, and solutions for each. Heart disease is a leading cause of death worldwide. And in the United States alone, over 655,000 Americans die from heart disease each year. But on a positive note, research has shown that food and nutrition can have a major impact on your heart health. So if you're struggling with your heart health or other conditions, nutrition offers so much hope. And I've seen firsthand the way nutrition can change your life, and that's what I'm excited to get into today. Now, if you're like most people in the world, you aren't doing cartwheels when your labs aren't what they should be or when you have a new diagnosis. There's usually that initial feeling of panic followed by, why me? How could this possibly be happening? Why now? So let's talk about why this is happening and why now. That leads us into our next topic, how our genetic makeup and lifestyle impact our hearts. Now, I promise there won't be a spelling test for the word at the top of the screen here at the end of our presentation. That word is nutrigenomics, and nutrigenomics is a rapidly growing field that studies how the nutrients we consume interact with our genes and affect our health. It focuses on understanding how individual genetic variations affect our response to different nutrients and how this can influence our risk of developing certain diseases, including, of course, heart disease. Our genes play a crucial role in determining our risk for heart disease. Certain genetic variations can increase our risk of developing heart disease by affecting the way our bodies process things like cholesterol, metabolize fats, or respond to inflammation. However, the good news is that our genes are not fixed. They are constantly interacting with our environment, including those foods that we eat, and this can influence how they are expressed. This is where we can say a huge thank you to the study of nutrigenomics, and that is why it matters. By understanding how different nutrients affect our gene expression, we can tailor our diets to target specific genes and the pathways that are involved in the development of heart disease. So, are you feeling like a nutrition scientist yet with this new information we're learning together? If you don't yet, I hope that you will by the time we're done today. So, for example, research has shown that a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, and seeds can help reduce the risk of heart disease by modulating gene expression. These foods are rich in phytochemicals, which is the scientific word for the unique and abundant nutrition compounds produced by plants. Phytochemicals include things like flavonoids, carotenoids, and other antioxidants, all of which can help reduce inflammation, improve blood lipid levels, and protect against oxidative stress. Similarly, Omega-3 fatty acids found in fatty fish, walnuts, and flaxseed can help reduce inflammation in the body by influencing gene expression. These fatty acids can also help reduce the risk of heart disease by improving blood lipid levels and reducing blood pressure. So overall, by understanding the nutrigenomics, but not knowing how to spell it is okay, but understanding that and how it impacts heart conditions, we can make informed food choices that target specific genes and their pathways and reduce our risk of developing heart disease. Now that we have an understanding of why heart disease can occur in our bodies, let's go a step deeper and talk about the specifics of each condition. The more we know about each, the more we can do to prevent and improve our outcomes. So let's get started. Starting with coronary artery disease, or CAD, this is a condition characterized by the buildup of plaque in the walls of our coronary arteries. Those arteries supply oxygen and nutrients to the heart muscle. This buildup of plaque, made up of fat, cholesterol, calcium, and other substances, narrows the arteries and reduces blood flow to the heart. Over time, this can lead to a variety of symptoms, which include chest pain, shortness of breath, and fatigue, and can increase the risk of heart attack and other complications too. The pathophysiology, or our body's processes, of coronary artery disease involves a complex interplay between genetics, lifestyle, and environmental factors, which include your diet, of course. Research has shown that certain dietary patterns, such as the Western diet, which is high in saturated and trans fats and low in fruits and vegetables, are associated with an increased risk of coronary artery disease. But in contrast, like we discussed, a diet that is more like a Mediterranean diet, which is rich in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats, like those found in fish, nuts, and seeds, have been shown to have a protective effect against coronary artery disease. Nutrition plays a critical role, therefore, in the prevention and management of coronary artery disease. And key nutrients, in addition to the ones that we just talked about, include omega-3 fatty acids, fiber, antioxidants, and plant sterols, which are components of plants that can lower your cholesterol in the body overall. So by understanding coronary artery disease's pathophysiology and anatomy, as well as the impact of nutrition on the disease, we can start to make some informed decisions about our diet and lifestyle to reduce our risk of developing it and improve overall heart health. And that message will resonate throughout each overview of the conditions that we discuss. That leads us into our next condition, which is a heart attack. A heart attack is also known as a myocardial infarction, or MI, and that occurs when blood flow to the heart muscle is blocked entirely, usually by a blood clot. Now, a blood clot can come from a piece of plaque breaking off and getting lodged in the artery. This blockage can damage or destroy part of the heart muscle and can be life-threatening. The pathophysiology of a heart attack involves a complex interplay of factors, which include genetics, lifestyle, environment, and diet, just like coronary artery disease. Dietary factors, again, play a crucial role in prevention and management of heart attacks. Studies consistently show that diets that are high in saturated and trans fats, as well as added sugar and salt, can increase the risk of heart attack by either or both blocking arteries altogether, causing a buildup of plaque that decreases blood flow, or by creating a lack of elasticity in the arteries, which impacts ultimately blood flow. And in contrast, a diet that is rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats reduces the risk of heart attack and improves overall health for many, many people. Similarly, just like coronary artery disease, key nutrients and dietary factors that we want to include are our omega-3s, fiber, antioxidants, and plant sterols. Those omega-3 fats can help reduce inflammation and blood clotting, while fiber and antioxidants can help to lower cholesterol and improve overall heart health. Next, we're going to talk about stroke, which is also known as cerebrovascular accident or CVA. This occurs when blood flow to the brain is disrupted, leading to brain cell damage or death. There are two main types of strokes, ischemic and hemorrhagic. An ischemic stroke occurs when a blood clot blocks blood flow to the brain, while the latter occurs when a blood vessel in the brain ruptures, causing bleeding. So the difference is a lack of blood flow versus a blood flow excess. I think about it like just how we need a certain amount of rain to avoid a drought, but not too much to cause flooding. That's exactly how our brains and our hearts are. The causes of stroke involve a complex interplay of factors, including genetics, lifestyle, and environment, just like the other conditions we've discussed. But high blood pressure, also called hypertension, is a major risk factor of stroke, as it can damage blood vessels and increase the risk of blood clots. High blood pressure over time makes the arteries less elastic or too rigid, which ultimately alters the blood flow, as we just talked about. And other risk factors for stroke include smoking, diabetes. Remember, excess sugar and sodium can decrease elasticity in the arteries. High cholesterol and obesity, because all of those things impact the elasticity and buildup present as well. When it comes to stroke, anatomy also plays a key role in stroke risk and prevention. The brain is divided into 4 main parts, just like the heart is. Those 4 parts control different functions in our body, and damage to any of those areas can result in a range of symptoms, including paralysis, vision problems, speech difficulties, cognitive impairments, and more. And that's why there are several ways to assess for symptoms of a possible stroke. Depending on what part of the brain is impacted, certain symptoms will appear. And that's where the FAST acronym at the bottom of your screen comes from. Those stroke symptoms spelling out FAST include facial drooping. Ask somebody to smile, and you'll notice that part of the smile will be normal and the other part will droop. That's a great way to test. A is for arm weakness. Have the person hold their arms out in front of them, and either one arm will be lower than the other unintentionally, or they won't be able to lift it at all. Speech difficulty, ask the person to speak. Say their name, say a sentence, and note if they're having any difficulty with their speech. And time. This is, I would argue, the most important. When it comes to a stroke, time is of the essence. If you suspect that somebody you know or love is having a stroke, you need to call an emergency service and get them to the hospital as fast as you possibly can, because the faster they can get to care, the more we are able to save their brain and their heart from long-term damage. And this is really important. I'm laughing as I say this, but I review these different symptoms, the FAST acronym, with my family during every major holiday. My poor husband is so sick of hearing it, and I'm not joking there, but awareness and time are so important here to prevent long-term damage to the body's functioning if a stroke occurs. And so it is never doing too much to review this with your loved ones. So I encourage you all to do the same with your families and your friends. The last condition that we're going to be discussing today is congestive heart failure, or CHF. And this is a chronic condition in which the heart is unable to pump enough blood to meet the body's needs. The pathophysiology of CHF involves a gradual weakening of the heart muscle, often as a result of an underlying heart disease like coronary artery disease, which we talked about first, or high blood pressure. The weakening that happens can cause the heart to become less efficient at pumping blood, which means that other organs aren't getting what they need to do their jobs effectively, and they have some big jobs to do. And ultimately, that leads to a buildup of fluid in the lungs, in the legs, and in other parts of the body. Anatomy also plays a crucial role in congestive heart failure. The heart is a really complex organ, and it's responsible for pumping blood throughout the entire body. That's a big job for one heart. And so to do that job, the heart is divided into 4 chambers, with the left and the right sides separated by a muscular wall called the septum. Damage to any part of the heart, including the valves, the arteries, the muscle tissue, etc., can lead to congestive heart failure. And understanding the anatomy of the heart and how it functions can help individuals recognize signs and symptoms of CHF and seek treatment as soon as possible. If you ever have time and you're interested and you want to impress some people with your scientific knowledge, look into the muscles of the heart and the valves and how they work. It really is amazing what the heart can do and why we should take such good care of it. Dietary factors that play an important role in prevention and management of CHF are really similar to everything else that we talked about, following that Mediterranean diet, high in fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, healthy fats, whole grains, all the good stuff. But the most important thing to call out for CHF is a diet that is low in sodium. We want to keep our salt intake as low as possible. A diet that is high in sodium can cause the body to retain excess fluid, which exacerbates CHF symptoms. As we said, CHF happens, congestive heart failure, when there's too much fluid in the body because the heart isn't able to pump well enough for the other organs to get what they need to do away with the fluid. So we don't want to be attracting even more fluid to certain areas of the body by eating excess sodium. So give your heart a hand and decrease your sodium intake as much as you possibly can to decrease the risk for CHF or improve your outcomes if it's something that you're diagnosed with. And sodium we'll talk about in just a moment, but sodium doesn't just come from the salt shaker. It's not just the salt that you physically add to your food. It's also in a lot of your processed items. So read your food labels to ensure that the foods you're eating, even if they don't taste salty, aren't too high in sodium. So let's do a really quick check-in and review. Thus far, we've discussed how and why general heart conditions occur. And as a reminder, the answer is that it is truly a marriage of genetics and lifestyle that cause these conditions. But then we discuss specific heart conditions and what can cause or exacerbate each in detail. Hopefully I haven't overwhelmed you yet, but if I have, I get it. So let's collectively take a deep breath and remember that knowledge is power. And now that we understand heart disease and the risks, we can talk about strategies for success. And I have some good ones and maybe a few that you haven't thought about too much before. Before I get to the ones you maybe haven't thought about before, let's get to the one that I've been harping on. The first thing to keep in mind is that there's no one-size-fits-all diet for managing heart conditions, but as we talked about throughout our presentation, research shows that a Mediterranean-style diet, high in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats can significantly reduce your risk of heart disease and associated conditions. So focus on a plant-forward diet. That doesn't mean it has to be all plants, just plants most of the time, and making sure that you're including as many fruits and vegetables as you can throughout your day with your meals and your snacks too. Don't forget about them when you're snacking. Limit your saturated and trans fats. Those are your animal-based fats, and trans fats are your manufactured fats. They don't occur naturally in nature. Your body has a harder time processing these, so eliminate those or limit them as much as you can. Stick with unsaturated fats. Those are your plant-based fats, and they are found in nature, and they're often liquid at room temperature, and your omega-3s, which are found in fish and your nuts and seeds and a handful of other food items. Also, don't forget about fiber. Fiber is really important, and a sneaky way that we recommend that you get fiber in more than one way is by recommending fruits and vegetables and things like whole grains, because fruits and veggies are loaded with fiber, and those whole grains are too. Make sure you're still having your whole grains in moderation. We don't want to overdo it on whole grains with the goal of getting fiber in. We want a nice balance to your diet, but fiber is really important to help decrease the cholesterol and fat in your body that is excess. And finally, my recommendation is to switch up your protein sources. Do something different. Your body really needs protein as part of its functioning and strengthening. So change it up. If you always have red meat, maybe choose one that's lower in fat that's better for your heart, lower in saturated fat. Maybe switch to chicken. Try something different. Try a plant-based protein option. Really mix it up so that your body has lots of different sources of nutrients when it comes to protein. And I recommend that with all the categories of food too. It's really great to mix it up and keep your body on its toes a little bit. The next things that we're going to talk about is mindful eating. And one of the unique facts about a heart-healthy diet is that it's not just what you eat, but it's how you eat it. So I encourage eating slowly, savoring your food and avoiding distractions while eating, which will help you feel more satisfied and reduce overeating overall. Overeating obviously can lead to weight gain, and that's a risk factor for heart disease. A few other tips are to keep to a schedule. Your body really appreciates a food and nutrition routine because it wants to know when it's going to get its energy next so that it knows how much to store and how much to burn off based on what your day-to-day routine looks like. So we can't all be perfect, and your body doesn't expect perfection by any means, but try your best to have some sort of nutrition-related routine, eating generally around the same time every day if you can, and including snacks between meals, especially if you're a little bit off your normal schedule. My next 2 tips on this page are think ahead and get to know yourself, and those things tie in together really well. Think ahead. If you find that you're always hungry every day at 3 o'clock and you plan to have a snack but you never have it on hand, maybe throw that snack in your purse or pick a different snack that doesn't have to be refrigerated so you can keep it on hand with you, or put something extra in your car. Maybe if you don't really know those times that you tend to get hungry or you can't find a pattern there, get to know yourself. Be a detective when it comes to your own health. You deserve to be able to compute your body's cues. We forget about them so often, especially as we get older. When we're children, we know what our body is trying to tell us because it's the only message that we are getting. But as we get other messages from people around us, our jobs, our families, society, we forget the small voices and the cues that our body is sending us. So pay attention to your body. When are you feeling hungry? When are you feeling full? When are you thirsty? What is the pattern that you're seeing when it comes to your health and nutrition? Note that, and that will help you eat more mindfully as well. The next strategy I want to discuss is reducing your sodium intake. This is something that even the healthy of us, myself included, can improve upon. Sodium is a mineral, and it's found in salt and many processed foods. And while sodium is essential for the body, our body does need it to function. Too much can increase blood pressure, which is a risk factor for heart disease. A unique fact about sodium that most people don't know is that we consume a lot more than we realize. Some of us have gotten better about noting this, but it's still a pretty unknown fact. And reducing sodium can be really challenging, but there are several tips that can help. One is to choose fresh or frozen vegetables instead of canned options because they tend to have less sodium and they're just as healthy for you. Additionally, cooking at home when you can with herbs and spices instead of salt can also reduce your sodium intake. And another thing you can do, check your food labels and gravitate towards items that have less added sodium or salt at all to that product. A question I'm often asked about salt or sodium is what kind of salt should I be using? There's all different types out there now. There's sea salt, there's different types of sea salt even, there's pink Himalayan salt, so on. Which one is the best? Certain salts do contain some excess minerals that can be beneficial to your health, but you really have to weigh the benefits and the risks. Are the benefits as wonderful as the risk of added sodium is? I would say 9.9 times out of 10, the answer is no. Salt is still salt. It's still sodium, and so we want to limit it as much as possible. So pick whatever type of salt if it's something you use in your home that makes the most sense for you and your loved ones, but overall, my best recommendation is just decrease it as much as you possibly can when you're cooking or when you're adding it to certain foods. Next, we'll talk about hydration, which is also essential for heart health. Research has shown that dehydration can increase the risk of heart disease and stroke. And a unique fact here is that drinking enough water may help reduce the risk of heart disease by reducing the risk of blood clots. Additionally, drinking water instead of sugary beverages can help reduce the risk of weight gain and diabetes, which we know are also risk factors for heart disease. And finally, let's talk about my last tip, lifestyle, which is a big category. Here, I've compiled a list of things that we can control. And what I tell my patients and remind myself often is that just because it's an area we can control doesn't mean it has to be perfect. Exercise, for example, can be anything you want it to be, and it can change day to day, week to week, month to month. And I'd love to hear in the chat how you like to stay active. So please add those things now while I'm giving some suggestions. Some of my favorite examples are things like taking a yoga class with some friends in person or even online. One of my favorite things to do is to watch a yoga YouTube video or a Pilates workout YouTube video, because then I can come and go as I please. If something happens in my day that interrupts me, I can always go back to it later. And I can really squeeze that in throughout my day instead of waiting until the end of the day when I'm tired and there's other things going on. Maybe a form of exercise for you is agreeing to just one more game of tag with your kids to get your heart racing, dancing it out in your living room while nobody's watching, or maybe while everybody's watching. Maybe you're a great dancer. Maybe jump roping, weight training, swimming, walking around. All movement counts. It's all important. So when we talk about the importance of striving for your best, but not from perfection, we have to talk about stress. We can't always avoid certain stressors or plan for the unexpected, but what we can do is schedule some time in to decompress every day. And I'm not talking about bubble baths and massages, although those are nice examples of ways we can decrease our stress. I'm talking about the little moments that we can take back in each day to keep our sanity. Maybe your exercise is your decompression time, and if that's the case, congratulations, you are one of the lucky ones. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's having a quiet 30 minutes to yourself in your car while you finish your favorite podcast before you go inside and tackle your home tasks for the evening. Maybe it's seeing a mental health professional to talk it out, or scheduling a walk with your friend every so many days of the week. Everyone's process is going to be different. And it's important to note that your process for dealing with stress is going to vary based on what's going on in your life, what your schedule looks like, etc. And that is okay. It does not have to be the same day to day, week to week, month to month. Just regardless, it's really important to manage your stress before it gets the best of your mind and your body. The next two items on our list involve substances and medication compliance. In the nutrition space, when we think of substances, we think of them as something that you take into your body that provides no nutritional or clinical value. Examples would be alcohol, excess sugar, or processed food consumption. Now, substances can bring us joy, but they take up space in the body, and that means that there is less room for all the good stuff. It's just like when you were a kid and your parents urged you not to fill up on sweets before dinner, because if you did, you know you would not be able to clean your plate, or you would leave your veggies for last and then be too full to eat them, which was never a good time for anybody, right? We all remember those days. The same rules apply here when it comes to substances. Now, for medication compliance, this is so important when it comes to heart health. If you are on a medication, my recommendation is to follow your doctor's instructions about how much to take, when, and with what, meaning with or without food, with or without exercise, fluids, and so on. Your medications are given to you for a reason, and if you aren't following those recommendations appropriately, your heart and other areas of your health too can be negatively affected. Now, if you're worried that something isn't right with your medication dosage, for example, or the timing of your medication, or maybe you don't agree with your doctor's recommendations, the next thing on our strategies for success list that you can control is see your doctor. So this ties in perfectly. Do not wait if you have questions. I have a few generally healthy family members who hate going to their annual doctor's visit or giving their doctor a call or an email to ask any questions, but I beg them to do so and beg them to go for their annual visit every year. When everything is unchanged, I always get a call or a text from my family saying, I told you so. But what I remind them is that the importance of going to the doctor isn't about finding something wrong. It is about keeping an updated medical record of you, it's all about you and keeping track of your body. Getting annual labs and a checkup and just communicating with a doctor that you like and that you trust is the best way that you can be in the know about your health. Because if you can look back at your history and see, for example, that your blood pressure has been consistent for 5, 10, 30 years and suddenly it's up, even if it's just a little, and most people wouldn't bat an eye at it, but you know something is off because you can compare it with your notes, you may catch a chronic illness before it becomes a real problem and be able to intervene. And I've seen this happen over and over again. I cannot recommend enough that you not skip this step of visiting with your medical professional, whether that's a doctor, a specialist. Find somebody you like, meet with them virtually or in person. Whatever works, get there, see them, and see them regularly. And finally, of course, meet with a registered dietitian just like me. We've talked about some amazing recommendations today, but because everyone is so unique, you need personalized nutrition guidance. It's so important. Just like your healthcare should be personalized to you, and it's really great to have a relationship with your doctor to establish your baseline and also know what to do in times of crisis. The same goes with your registered dietitian. We've made some excellent recommendations here on food and nutrition for heart health, but something that works really well for one person might not work best for you. Or maybe the recommendation is sound, but it doesn't fit into your preferences, your lifestyle. It's impossible to add to your diet because nobody else in your household likes it. There are a million different barriers to nutrition success, and a registered dietitian isn't just there to make recommendations on what to eat and how much to eat and what your diet should look like, but they're also there to troubleshoot and problem solve those barriers so that you can meet your nutrition goals and so that we can make sure that your nutrition plan fits you and your lifestyle instead of trying to fit you into a mold. Okay, so let's get into the very last part of our presentation, which is reviewing some heart-healthy recipes. And these are a few of my favorites, and we will send these out to you at the end of our presentation. The first one I want to talk about is a breakfast recipe, but I love it because it can be used for lunch or dinner too. It's a really versatile one. And I like including this for breakfast because most of the time our breakfasts are generally sweet in nature. Something with fruit, something that just kind of helps that sweet tooth. But I find that including vegetables in your breakfast just creates one less barrier for you during the day. Your veggies are already out of the way. You feel good. You've got that fiber first thing in the morning. It's a great way to start your day. And this recipe, this eggplant, bell pepper, and potato hash has a great amount of fiber from the variety of vegetables included and vitamins and minerals as well. It includes a healthy fat for cooking and is low in saturated fat because it doesn't have any animal-based proteins in it. And it's also low in sodium because we don't add any salt, and we also aren't using any canned items or seasoning blends to prepare this food. This is one of my favorite recipes. I encourage you to give it a try. And if you're someone who doesn't like eggplant, this is a great way to kind of dip your toe in to new ways to having eggplant. Most of us know it from an eggplant parm, or you've had it grilled and you've hated it or something. This is a really unique way to prepare it. Highly recommend this recipe. The next one we're going to talk about is a green salad with strawberries and goat cheese. This recipe has been a favorite in my household for years. I love this recipe. This is one that I pull out if I have company coming over. I need to impress somebody, but I don't have a lot of time because the flavors in this, the pairing is magical. You get the bite from the goat cheese. You get the sweet, tart acidity from the strawberries, some crunch with your pecans, and then you get your spinach too, which kind of softens it all a little bit. You make your own dressing with this recipe, which also makes you feel a little bit fancy, a little bit more elevated, and it's one that is generally a crowd pleaser. If you don't love goat cheese, if that's not your cup of tea, you can replace that with a feta. You can replace it with a blue cheese, but a sharp cheese, something that has a bite, is the best recommendation there. So that's why goat cheese is the go-to. This recipe is high in fiber, vitamins, and minerals from the spinach and from the strawberries, has healthy fat from the dressing and also from those nuts and seeds in there, and then is low in saturated fat doesn't have any saturated fat for the veggies and fruits, obviously, but low from that goat cheese too, and no sodium added. So it's a really great recipe to keep in your cookbook. And finally, the last one is another one that I pull out that's a crowd pleaser when I have people coming into town, or I want to make something special for my husband and don't have a lot of time. This lemon garlic chicken penne with pesto and spinach is a favorite. If you want to change it up a little bit, you can swap the penne out for any other kind of pasta. Sometimes I'll switch it with angel hair, or my favorite is to switch the penne with an orzo. It completely changes the texture, and I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things to make. I always add a little extra lemon. I love lemon. Any recipe that has lemon in it, you can guarantee I'm going to like it. So I always add a little extra lemon. And this one is another one. We talked about the importance of not using canned vegetables. Here you can use fresh spinach, but you can also use a frozen option. One, that way you can always have it on hand. 2, it's a lot cheaper. And 3, I don't know about you, but I always buy spinach fresh and it ends up going bad before I can use it. But you can use frozen in this recipe and it works out just as wonderfully. You don't notice a difference and it's just as healthy for you. This recipe has some great protein from your lean chicken, complex carbohydrates and whole grains from your pasta, fiber from that pasta and that spinach as well, vitamins and minerals from your spinach and your lemon, some healthy fats. It's really low in saturated fat and it's low in sodium as well. My recommendation here is try your best to get a whole grain pasta option because that will give you more fiber and that will ensure that you are more full when you've completed this meal and helps you to kind of curb that hunger monster that we try our best to keep at bay. The last thing I want to do is recap what we've learned today. First, a reminder that heart disease encompasses many different kinds of heart conditions. And in order to combat those, we want to limit foods that are high in saturated fat, sodium, and added sugars. Instead, we want to focus our meals around foods that are high in fiber, fruits, and vegetables, and those whole grains too. I recommend highly practicing mindful nutrition to create healthy habits that last. Get to know yourself, get to know your body, listen to your body cues, and be your own detective. That will help you to eat well long term. And also recommend getting regular movement, about 150 minutes or so a week, doing something you enjoy. Exercise doesn't have to be painful or miserable. Find something that you like that works for you and just get your body moving. Finally, we recommend staying on top of your heart health with regular visits with your dietitian and with a medical provider too. Keep track of your labs, of your medical history. You are the best advocate for you, so keeping an accurate record is so important, and a registered dietitian and a good health provider will help you do that. And finally, don't stop looking for new plant-forward recipes to continue your heart health journey. There are so many fun, exciting, and healthy recipes that are out there. You just need to know where to find them, and that's where Food Smart comes in. We make it easy. We always have new recipes available, and we know how hard it is to eat well. So the recipes we provide are simple, they're delicious, and they're ones that you can keep on hand, just like I do for those last-minute visitors that come to your home. One more thing to mention is that Food Smart now has a new offering with a Heart Smart Nutrition Program. It's 12 weeks of one-on-one support working with a registered dietitian just like me, and it's a very comprehensive program for you to learn about your specific heart health. So it goes beyond what we talked about here today. It goes specifically into your heart conditions and your values to talk about where we can make changes. And it also provides you with a program guide that you can utilize when you're with your registered dietitian, but also during your offline learning as well. It also gives access to the Food Smart app for recipes, meal planning, and grocery ordering, and your RD is there to support you every step of the way. So schedule a visit with a registered dietitian and make sure that you ask about this Heart Smart Nutrition Program if your heart health is something that you want to focus on. We have come to the end of our webinar today, and we just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy life to join us here and to put your health and your nutrition first. We know how hard it is to do that, and FoodSmart is always striving to make eating well simple for you and those that you care about. Get scheduled with a registered dietitian today by using the link below, and we hope to see you next month during another webinar where we dive into how to make nutrition unique for you and those that you care about too. Thanks so much. I'm Maddie Reeder, your FoodSmart registered dietitian, and we'll see you soon.